From the Oklahoman newsroom, this is an OU update on signing day. I'm Jenny Carlson here in studio. The Sooners' early signing class, the December signing group, is pretty much in. Ryan Aber joins us on the phone to talk about what we know at this point, what may still be coming. Ryan, at this point, 18 look to have signed on the line. I don't think it's dotted, so we'll just say signed on the line. They have made their commitments official with Oklahoma, and this is, at least nationally, this is a class getting some attention. What's the buzz about the Sooners class right now?
Yeah, it was an interesting close for the Sooners. They had some difficulties there at the end with some guys that they had really targeted that wind up going elsewhere. But at the same time, a really solid class for Oklahoma all around. I think a couple of the most notable pieces there are a couple of JUCO defensive linemen. One that they got over the summer in Perry and Winfrey, another that they got here just a couple days ago with their last commitment before signing day. I think those guys really have a chance to make an impact quickly, although Oklahoma has struggled over the last decade to find productive junior college defensive linemen. But Alex Grinch certainly making a big impact in his first class. And then on the other side of the ball, I think you've got to start with Marvin Mims, the wide receiver from Texas, the most productive stat-wise wide receiver in Texas high school football history. So to haul him in a year after you had the most heralded group of wide receivers ever to sign with one school in one class, with the 3 5-stars that OU signed last year, I think they've got to feel really good about that, because so often when you haul in a class like that, it becomes much harder to recruit the next year at that position.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, talking about defensive guys, Ryan, it makes me think about this really being the first complete class that we've seen Alex Grinch have his fingerprints all over. He came in late enough a year ago that he didn't really have a chance to have much impact. When you look at these guys on recruit-wise, are we starting to see some differences in the type of players or anything that just stands out to you about the defensive guys that Alex Grinch is going after compared to what the Sooners were getting previously?
Yeah, I mean, certainly you look at the speed, which is the number one factor that Alex Grinch wants in his defenders, especially on the back end. It's something that he is sort of non-negotiable for him. You mentioned last year he arrived late. There's only one guy on this roster who was brought in under Alex Grinch, and that's David Agwebu, who I don't think, to anybody's surprise, played pretty early, and then his role grew and grew as the year went on. So certainly he was in the mold of what Alex Grinch wants there at outside linebacker, and we're going to continue to see that. I think the secondary is where Alex Grinch has talked about the depth being alarmingly thin. He's mentioned that a couple times, and it really hadn't got much better as the season went on as far as guys that he really trusted to throw out there. And I think you're starting to see him fill in with guys who have a chance, not that they're going to be able to play immediately, but at least physically looks like they've got a chance to play in his system.
Yeah, the last thing on defense, Ryan, Reggie Grimes is a name that Sooner fans who are attuned to recruiting are talking about today. He's a defensive lineman. He says he's committed to Oklahoma but is not signing today. We've had some instances in the past where guys have said they didn't sign and they're signing later, but they really did sign. This may be a case where he hasn't. What's the situation with Grimes, and what would it mean for the Sooners to land him ultimately?
Yeah, he's a big-time recruit for them, certainly at a key position there at the defensive end spot. They need some more bodies in that slot. It would be the second consecutive year that Oklahoma would pull one of Tennessee's biggest recruits out of that state after getting Woody Washington, who was the number one recruit in the state of Tennessee a year ago. So he's an important piece. I think there was not necessarily a huge element of surprise in that announcement that he would wait to sign until February. He says he's still 100% committed to the Sooners, but if you don't sign, at least there's a little bit of anxiety, I think, for OU fans moving forward on him.
Hey, lastly, Ryan, back to the offensive side. You mentioned the big get in the receiver group, but no quarterback signed at this point. I was actually out at Norman High myself. Cade Horton signing his baseball letter of intent, but He's a dual sport guy, expects to play football if indeed he gets to Oklahoma. Big-time baseball recruit who might end up getting some pro offers later in this baseball cycle. But no quarterback at this point on the signing list for Oklahoma. Is that a level of concern, or seems like transfer quarterbacks fall out of the sky all the time into Norman? What's sort of the thinking on quarterbacks right now?
Well, I think it's not a massive level of concern as long as you stay healthy. I think everybody expects around here that Spencer Rattler is going to be Oklahoma's starting quarterback in next season. The only thing is you've got to keep at this point, if you don't bring in a quarterback, and really even if you do, you've got to keep Tanner Mordecai happy, and that involves, if we look at the Lincoln Riley playbook, saying that this race is really close and it's going down to the wire, and then at the end, Spencer Rattler just happens to win out at the end. So we'll see what happens there, but I think it was going to be difficult for them to recruit quarterbacks in this class, and they felt like that they weren't going to settle for one just to say they got one. They wanted to go after a guy that they really wanted, and they just never really found that guy or never really landed that guy because they brought in Rattler last year, obviously a 5-star recruit and one of the top quarterbacks in that class. And then next year they've got Brock Vandegrift committed, who is not only a 5-star recruit himself, but at the time the number 1 player overall in the 2021 class. So I think that made it much more difficult for them to bring in the level of quarterback that they wanted to in this 2020 class.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if one does end up signing in February. A few more players expected to sign in February because Oklahoma's class not full right now. We'll continue to have coverage of today, signing day. Lincoln Riley has a press conference coming up, so we'll have a lot more from that. So be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at Oklahoman.com and every day in the Oklahoman.